Good morning, dear ones, and happy Friday. We made it through the week. Well done, everybody. And I hope that you are loving yourselves as much as you can and as unconditionally as possible. So we're carrying on with our universal laws today. And today is number 4, the Law of Correspondence. And this law states that the principles or laws of physics that explain the physical world, energy, light, vibration, and motion, have their corresponding principles in the etheric or in the universe. So this one is as above, so below. The correlation between what happens on Earth and in the universe can be seen here on Earth as well, in microcosm fashion. A very special human being pointed out to me that if you look at the structure of a tree, it looks very similar to lungs. So trees are the Earth's lungs. Do you see how the correspondence is there? And there are a myriad of pictures of what we know and we can see of the universe out there, such a pinprick in the bigger scheme of things that are mirrored here on Earth in the physical form. And so it stands to reason that everything corresponds. Another less positive example is that a sunspot, the spot on the sun, actually looks like skin cancer on your skin. And there's a galaxy that looks exactly like an eye. The premise behind the law of correspondence is that our lives are created by the subconscious patterns that we repeat every single day. And these patterns either serve us or hold us back. They activate this law by becoming aware of our own patterns, which are often passed down via family ties and then subconsciously taking actions to break them. Okay, so when we are talking about the law of correspondence, we can actually refer back to the 4 agreements. Because if you actually either read the book or listen to the audio book, you will be able to understand that the agreements that we have, or the agreements that are referred to, are actually the agreements of the things that we understand that were taught to us as children in our formative years, and we didn't have a choice. So many people who do have toddlers or 3-year-olds, sometimes 4-year-olds, around that time of our lives, we are questioning everything. Who of you have actually, whether your toddler is your own, whether your child is your own or somebody else's child, who have asked, but why? And then the answer is given, but why is the response. And there is this constant why, because they're questioning and asking. And eventually a lot of us adults get a little bit annoyed and say, because I said so. Now that is an agreement. If you say to a child, the sky is blue, if the child asks you, why is the sky blue? Very often we don't go into a scientific explanation of why the sky is blue or why the plants are green, the grass is green. Why? So when we often tell the children the reason for that, we're actually creating something within them, and it comes down to, from the scientific point of view, the neural synapses, that actually the neural pathways that create an understanding in our brains. And a lot of those are actually taking place in our formative years. So that's why so many people say the children are sponges, because children are looking at us. They're looking to us, not only for approval, but how things are done. They look at us as an example. They mimic us. They might mimic our hand gestures or something that we say. And very often there's a time of our lives that our children are actually what we call a little mini-me, because they mimic us to such a perfect standard. And this is why it's so important to understand that when our children are watching us, what they are understanding corresponds to how they will be growing up. So we need to understand that every single day, the patterns that we have, and that's why it's so important if we do want to change some sort of habit within us, we need to make sure that our habits or our actions correspond with what we actually want to happen. Okay, so this is why all of the universal laws are so important to understand how everything actually connects and how it corresponds with each other. When we look at patterns, we are able to understand that things work in a certain way. And when we understand how things work, we're able to change them better, or to see where change needs to be affected. And when we love ourselves, we understand that that love, that self-love, is now a new pattern, because there are a lot of people, you'll find that a lot of people who are highly successful in their lives do not have an issue with self-love. And that issue of that non-issue of having self-love corresponds to their confidence, and their confidence and their courage in their own convictions corresponds to their success, because there is nothing that can throw any fear, uncertainty, and doubt at them, because they are so able to stand strong in their power and to love themselves and who they are. And that's why when we do want to make changes in our lives, if we're able to actually consistently continue with that change and the corresponding pattern that you can enforce for 40 days, you will probably have a hell of a lot more success in a lot of other things. But bear in mind that when you want to change everything in your life, it very often feels insurmountable. It's way too big for us to change every single thing. So if we start with small things and we look at those small things and we make those changes, tack them on to good habits we already have. And if you have at least one good habit, you will always be able to look at having better habits as you go along. So when we look at so as above, so below, we are looking at the physical world. And when we're looking at all of the circular motion of the universe and the way that the stars and the planets revolve around each other, and when we look at the way that everything on our planet revolves around itself and other things, that correspondence shows a pattern that is true here on earth, and therefore then is also reflected in the entire universe. We can take the entire universe as big as we can understand it, which is actually just a pinprick of our understanding, because if you think about it, the universe is vast, enormous, and we don't even know how big it is. People say that the universe is expanding, and that we're talking about the heat death of the universe eventually, but we need to actually look at what we do understand and understand how small that understanding actually is. We know a lot more about other stars than we know about what is going on down in the deep depths of the Marianas Trench on our earth here where we live. So when we understand that everything corresponds, when we go back down to nanotechnology, we also can understand how certain things have patterns and can be built on. So everything corresponds. So we need to activate the law of correspondence by being aware of the patterns that we have within ourselves. And when you know the pattern that does not correspond to your greatest and highest good, then you need to feed something different. Okay, the story of the dragon's duel, or the story of the two wolves. If you feel that you are having something in your life, a pattern in your life that does not correspond to your highest and greatest good, then you need to stop feeding that particular pattern with your energy and feed something else with your energy. And that is where coming up with a new habit, putting new things in place in your life, and it's all about follow through. Stick with it, because you're not going to see a change happen if you do not stick with it. If you do it for 2 days and it's too hard, you're never ever going to get that change, and you might as well just give up and just be happy with the life that you have. But if you really and truly want to affect the change and love yourself and respect yourself enough to make sure that the changes you make in your life are for your highest and greatest good, so that you have a life where you are happy and you can bring joy to others, because there's so much joy and love inside yourself that it bubbles up and bubbles over, and it has to get out, and so it goes out to everybody else. If you want a life like that, then you need to make the changes within yourself first. because the changes and the patterns that you make within yourself will correspond then to the energy that you send out, and therefore the energy that you send out now in a circular motion comes back to you. Dear ones, please ask me questions. If you do have any questions, direct message me, WhatsApp me. The link is in the Facebook page here below. Remember, Friday, you're going to have an awesome weekend. And 4 agreements, 5 Reiki principles. Love yourself unconditionally because you are directly from God. Remember, we are all one with the divine. Much love and light, everyone. Have a good one.